And thank you, panelist team and members, for joining us this evening. We are excited to provide you with this webinar about student loans. Eddie already introduced himself. He's from our marketing team. We have Carrie Lazar, who I'm sure you're very familiar with. Also from marketing, we have Andrea Lodono. She is another familiar face. I am Kim Fridley, membership development analyst, and we do have our subject matter expert with us, Suzanne Wilkin. So Suzanne is a director of strategic partnership for Credit Union Student Choice, which is a CUSO that partners with credit unions and the United States Senate Federal Credit Union to provide private student loans and loan options for refinancing student loan debt. So prior to working for Credit Union Student Choice, Suzanne actually worked in the same field as we do. She worked in the credit union industry for over 30 plus years. Take a look at her. She only looks 30. And she served as a VP of lending for a credit union in New Hampshire. So she's really passionate about assisting members and understanding how to pay for college, as well as helping recent graduates understand their options in paying down their student loan debt. So without ado, take it away, Suzanne, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. It's my honor to be here tonight. I am very passionate about this subject matter. Hopefully, we'll get through some of your questions. And of course, like was mentioned previously, I will hang out after the webinar to answer any questions that you might have. So for now, I'm just going to turn off my video because it's super distracting when I'm going through these slides. But we will get the party started. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about choosing college, preparing for college, choosing college, the cost of an education, what is going on with that pesky FAFSA form that we've been hearing about in the media. I'm also going to do some deep diving on how to read an award letter, what you should be looking out for, and then of course your resources. Where should you go first? You always want to tap into your free money first, your cheap money second. What does that mean? We'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. And then the gap funding, okay? So now that we have the free money and the scholarships, we still have an unmet need on that tuition bill. So where are we going to get that money from? So I know that your credit union will be more than happy to help you with that with their undergraduate solutions. So the first thing that I wanted to point out is that, higher education is important. We see that students or graduates that earn a bachelor's degree versus people that just come into the employment sector with just a high school diploma, those people that have a college degree usually make more money over their career, over $1 million more. So of course, that is probably one of the reasons why you drive into, going for college so that you can have a career that pays money. But it's also for the experience. And I also am a firm believer at making that approach to college life holistic, right? Of course, we have to finance it, but is it the right fit for the student? So what do we do? How do we prepare for this event? I'm not going to focus too much on this slide, but I wanted to show you what you should be doing prior to applying for college, especially those parents that might have some younger students on the call. So before high school, obviously try to coach them into becoming involved in their community because that's really good on a student resume. Develop those critical study habits so that we can have really good grades going into college. Focus on the big picture. We're not looking for anyone to make decisions about the rest of their lives, but they can look into different careers and options and start asking questions. And then always, always, always save any money that you can towards this big dollar item. There's no way around it. It's very costly, so every little bit helps. Freshman and sophomore, they should start getting a little bit more serious about exploring their careers, right? Looking at colleges, college prep classes, maybe AP classes. Those are really good. to test out of credits for college. My youngest daughter, I have two daughters that have been through college, and both of them took AP. My youngest daughter was very aggressive taking AP courses, and she was able to graduate 6 months earlier, and saved me a whole bunch of money. For, if you save a semester, that's a wonderful savings in my pocket. So, something to consider. If you are taking AP courses, just make sure that you pay the fee to actually take the exam at the end, because just taking classes thinking that it looks good in your resume is wonderful, don't get me wrong, but you also have to pay that small fee to get tested out of those credits. So please encourage your students to do that. Juniors, things are starting to get a little bit more serious. You have to take your ACTs, your SATs. Start looking for scholarship opportunities. We're going to be talking about that in the presentation. I would just say that juniors, your end of your junior year, that summer, you should start dedicating yourself to looking for scholarships, and never stop until you graduate college. Okay, it doesn't stop at high school. You always look for those scholarship opportunities, and we're going to show you what your resources are. Go to financial aid nights, something similar to this webinar. The more you hear terminology, the better off you are in focusing on how to, be best armed for the future with financial higher ed financing. And then college visits. This is really important to show demonstrated interest in colleges. Colleges love this. So when you start filling out your applications, you can note that you visited the college, or at least take a virtual tour if you can't make it. Show some interest. That goes a long way with colleges. And then seniors, this is when we really get serious, right? So you apply to colleges in the fall, right? You're going to complete your FAFSA form. We're going to talk about the FAFSA form in a few minutes so that you understand what that's all about. Stay focused, be active, don't get senioritis, because just because you get into a college doesn't mean it's locked and solid, right? So if grades start declining in high school, they might withdraw that offer of admissions. So basically, that's it in a nutshell. Preparing for college. Again, we're going to be showing you a lot of resources that will help you along the way. So how do you choose a college? What is good for you? Of course, you want to make sure that you have a good job placement right after you graduate. What are the graduation statistics? Do they participate in financial aid? Are they a for-profit university or a not-for-profit university? Are they private? Are they public? What does that mean? Why do I even have to worry about that? So, where you start is a really good, I have it up on the screen now. There are a lot of tools out there, let's face it, but the ones that we like the best, we're going to talk about tonight. So nces.ed.gov/college navigator is a really good tool. So you basically can search for different variety. You can put the name of the school in, or if you're not sure of the school that you're interested in, just let's say I want to go to New York. I live in New Hampshire. I want to go to New York. Just put New York in there and it'll give you all of the colleges. You can actually pinpoint it even further by putting zip codes and all that you see here, right? So it's a really cool place to go. This is an example. I pulled up George Mason University for you tonight. This is the general information that they give you. It's a four-year public school. What they offer in degrees and certificates. Campus setting. It's a suburb. It's large. Now, as a parent, that might be concerning to me if I come from a small town and I know that my student is a small town type of person. They might not appreciate a large campus, right? You might not appreciate a student to faculty ratio of 16 to 1 or 250 to 1, depending on how big the university is. You have to take account your student, how they learn, the best way they learn, and what the surroundings are. So this tool, again, helps you understand that. Now, The other thing that's really good about this tool is that it's really important that you build a 4 or 5 year budget going into your decision-making process. How much does each university cost that you're interested in? So I've put up on the screen some interesting numbers that would help you with your budget. For example, tuition and fees, right? It breaks it down by books, food, off campus, on campus. It gives you a percentage year over year of how much tuition increases so that you're able to build something that's pretty accurate and you know what you're dealing with before you make that final decision on that university. It also shows you if they participate in financial aid, which George Mason University does, which is wonderful. But parents, you really need to understand the difference between grants and scholarships and student loans. Yes, they might participate in financial aid. That's wonderful. But if the majority of their aid is going out in loans rather than free money, then that's something that you have to be aware of, right? So take that into consideration too. Again, great tool to use. And I know that this presentation will be available on United States Senate Federal Credit Union's website. So you don't have to write all of this down. We do have that link out there for you that you can use. Now, let's talk a little bit about the cost of education. I always go over this slide, not to me to scare anyone away, but to explain how the cost works. So for purposes of conversation tonight, we're going to talk about the public 2 year experience for your student and the public, excuse me, I'm sorry, scratch that. The public 4 year in-state on-campus experience and the private not-for-profit on-campus experience for your students. So bar graph, the bar number 2 and number 4 is what we're going to be talking about. So as you can see, you're looking at probably $29,000 a year for a public 4 year in-state on-campus experience and $60,000 for private experience, right? So this is an average cost nationwide. We live in the Eastern Seaboard, which we have a lot of wonderful universities. So that number is actually higher, unfortunately. So you're probably looking at anywhere between $31,000 and $36,000 for public and minimally $60,000, right? I've seen it as high as $80,000 with some universities in New Hampshire. Which you probably can figure out which ones if they're in New Hampshire. So yeah, that's a big ticket item. However, let's hone in on that bar. The dark blue area are tuition and fees that's in stone. There's no changing that no matter what happens. That's what you're going to pay. There's no negotiation on that. But anything beyond that dark blue area is your flexible costs, okay? So your housing and food, books, supplies, transportation, there's other expenses. That's where you can make a difference in your overall budget. So every little bit of decision making counts during the 4 or 5 year period. So it all adds up, and we're going to talk about some tips and tricks on how you can bring that number down, hopefully, and help your pocketbook out. So your credit union approaches higher ed financing on a value-based approach. They always want to encourage you to get the free money first, which are grants and scholarships. And we'll talk a little bit more about that again. The cheap money second, which are federal direct loans. And then, okay, what do you do for gap? Do you tap into your 529 plan? If you have a house, do you tap into the home equity? What do you do? Do you take out a plus loan? So if you have those options available to you, I would suggest you have a conversation with a financial planner. You could go to your credit union, you could talk to an accountant just to see what options are best for you, compare and contrast, right? Before you pull the trigger on any student loans. Now, 529 plans, a lot of people ask me about those. Every situation is different. So I am not a financial counselor. I wouldn't be able to counsel you on 529 plans. because some people like to use all of it all up front. Some people like to divide it over the 4 years. There's a lot going on. That's where you need to talk to an advisor that would help with those questions. Now, where does it all begin? It begins with the FAFSA form, the free application for federal student aid. You should always bookmark this. The studentaid.gov page is vitally important for you. Okay, not only does it take you to the FAFSA form, which is basically a form that students and their parents fill out on a yearly basis. As long as they go to college, they're going to have to fill this out to have doors open for them in federal assistance. Okay. So a lot of parents ask me, well, I'm probably not going to get anything from the federal government. They say, I'm going to make too much. I'm not even going to bother doing it. I would encourage you to think twice and still fill that FAFSA form out. You might not qualify for federal aid, but what happens is the college and the university your daughter or son are going to, they use this form to determine a package. So they might have free money that they're going to give. So if you don't complete this form, financial aid officers are going blind when they come to your students' request for money. So please, I encourage you to fill this out. Now, there's a lot of craziness out in the media this year on the FAFSA form because they did basically a rehaul of it. It went from like I can't remember. I should remember this. Like so many questions down to like I think from 136 down to 80 or something like that. I should know this. I apologize, but they've made it super simple. To complete because they have an automatic download of your income information, your taxes, right? So they don't want students trying to, answer questions anymore about income because it has been confusing in the past. So now they've made it real simple and it becomes available usually October 1st of every year. So I say to parents, it's make sure you fill this form out as soon as you can because it's first come, first serve. Now, because of the revamp, there has been a lot of issues surrounding the FAFSA form this year. There's a lot of deadlines that were kicked down the line. So usually it becomes available October 1st, but last year it became available the end of December. And then we had a lot of people filling it out in the month of January, only to be told that, oops, we're going to put a hold on this because calculations are not correct. So that made everything slower in the process, right? So a lot of parents are still waiting for their financial aid form because of this delay. So it's all of this to say, make sure you bookmark studentaid.gov. It will tell you about deadlines, real critical deadlines. Now they're saying that they're shooting for October 1st this year to have the form available again. But realistically, if I was a betting woman, I would say it probably wouldn't be available until December again. So again, that's totally up in the air, which is why you need to bookmark this URL. Now, once you fill out the FAFSA form, like I said, it opens up all these doors to scholarship and grants, federal work study programs, direct loans, institutional programs directly from the school, and plus loans. So we're going to cover a little bit about that in a few minutes, but this is what the process is. Your student completes the FAFSA form. Usually it's electronic. I wouldn't suggest doing it by mail because it's going to take a whole lot longer. So complete it online and within 7 to 10 days, if not sooner, usually in the FAFSA world, your student will get a student aid report. That goes to the student only. It does not go to the parents. So make sure you ask your student for it, especially first year freshmen. They're using sometimes their own personal email instead of a school email. So make sure you ask them, hey, did you receive that student aid report? Can I take a look at it, right? Now, once the aid report is sent, at the same time, a report is sent to the school called an ISER, Institutional Student Information Record. Same information on it so that the school can determine what the family's income is and what they're going to give back. This was called in the past expected family contribution, but now it's known as the Student Aid Index, the SAI. Okay. There was a lot of confusion about that. People thought that they had to pay the expected family contribution, and they really didn't. It was just a starting point for financial aid officers to start building their financial aid package for that student. So once they get those, once the school gets the ISA report, then they start building that package. They'll send that package out to your student via email, usually, and you can make a decision. Sometimes they send it out by mail, but usually it's by email. So don't forget, the FAFSA opens up October 1st. However, there might be some extension on that this year again. Please apply online. You have to do it annually. This is a free form to complete, so beware of scams. Anyone that, if you go to a site that charges you, there's only one site. That site that studentaid.gov is the only site you should go to. But if you wander off that site and someone starts saying that they're going to charge you, or if there's a company that specializes in filling out the FAFSA form, don't take it. Please don't go down that path, because the FAFSA people are wonderful to deal with. You can call them up. You have plenty of resources if you have questions. You even have resources through your own credit union that I will talk about at the end of this webinar. So please, reach out to the right people, and it's always free. So now that we've decided that we want to go to school and the school sends us this award letter package, how do we read it? What is this all about? And I say that it is critical for parents to sit down with their students, because a lot of times, you get in as a student, you get in, you see the award letter, you hand it off to mom or dad and say, okay, you figure it out how to pay for it, right? But I think it's really important that decisions are made together, because I talk to students all the time, and when they graduate, they are blown away that they have a certain amount of loans that they have to pay back. Because in their mind, they said, well, I got an award letter every year. That amount was an award. Well, yeah, it's an award that was a loan. Okay, so parents know this. You're signing a promissory note. Parents are aware. But students, this is their first big transaction. So make sure that you sit down as a family together to read through it. This is just an example of an award letter. Schools write different formats all over the country. Okay, so just know that not all award letters are written the same, and they could be deceiving. So what you really want to find out is the net cost. And the net cost is the cost of attendance minus any grants or scholarships and any savings that you have put towards your school costs. That is what's called your net costs. So I've given you an example of both fall and spring semesters, and I've also totaled up the year for conversation here. So you'll see tuition and fees under estimated costs, housing and meals, books and supplies, transportation, personal, and then the total estimated cost of attendance. Okay. You see for the fall, spring, and then combined for the total year. Then what you're going to see is the financial offer, the award letter. So scholarships, grants, this is where the free money comes in. Okay. You're going to subtract that from the estimated total cost of attendance. But then you have to take into account the loans, right? So this is also, the federal loans are also subtracted from the cost of attendance, but don't forget, you're paying those loans back. So it's not free money, really. They are a loan. Okay, so it's really important that if you get an award letter that looks very simple, simpler than this, and it just shows you an amount without itemizing everything, make sure you pick up the phone and call your financial aid officer to see what the breakdown is and that you totally understand what's going on, because there is a lot that can be misconstrued on this. I've done seminars, on-site seminars, and I've had just a seminar where parents bring in their award letter just to go through it so that they understand it. So you are not alone. If you've already received an award letter and you're not quite sure how you read it or understand it fully, again, you'll have resources through your credit union that I'll point you to at the end of this webinar. So when you receive your award letter, I want you to understand that it's not written in stone, okay? It can be appealed, questions can be asked, because what happens is an award letter is put together based on FAFSA information that is prior year tax return. A lot can happen in 2 years, right? There could be a change in employment, divorce, death, disability. All of that isn't outlined in a FAFSA form because it's from 2 years ago. So make sure you call the financial aid officer to let them know that there are extenuating circumstances. And it doesn't have to be as traumatic as these. It could be as simple as my mom lives with me. I have my daughter going to George Mason. I also have another daughter that is in high school. She is a senior, a junior, and she's, thinking about going to college. This is going to be a burden I have to save for her. Have those conversations because that can matter in the end. Also, I wouldn't call this an appeal as much as it's an idea. It's always good to go back to your financial aid officer once you've received an award letter, probably the first 2 weeks of June, and you could do it even now if you wanted to. But the reason why I say that is in this country, most universities expect their students to make a decision May 1st on where they're going to college, right? So let's say if George Mason sends out 500 financial aid packages and only 300 come back, there's 200 financial aid packages that they're sitting on. So they have some money, they have some wiggle room for their existing enrollment. So always go back and check. Now you just, it's in how you ask, right? Make sure you emphasize the demonstrated interest of the student, why they want to go to that particular school. That goes a long ways with the financial aid officer. So now I'm going to also talk a little bit about how to save money here, right? This is, I love getting on my soapbox for these items. So rent, which is room and board, right? So this is, again, these are just estimations. These are just ideas for you to think about when you're approaching the total cost of an education. So rent, the first year a freshman goes to school, right? Their hands are tied on a lot of things. Like my nephew is now a sophomore at UNH. And the first 2 years of school there, you are required to stay on campus. The next 3 and 4 years, you can stay at home to save money, right? So I would suggest you look at that option to save money. You could also look to become an RA, maybe your third year, and have room and board waived for you. So that's also another thing. Or instead of getting just one other roommate, maybe you go into a suite and that cost is lower. So there's maybe 3 or 4 people in the same room. So those are just options to think about. Food, again, incoming freshmen, hands are tied. They're going to get cafeteria plan A, which is the Cadillac of plans, right? It could feed 2.5 people, in my opinion. So you really can't do anything in that first year. But the second, third, and fourth year, you're going to be presented with cafeteria plan A, B, C, D, D being rice, ramen noodles thing, not a whole bunch of good stuff, right? But at least you have options. Now, I've had freshmen come back to me after webinars saying that they can sell their food credits either back to the school and if they do that, I would recommend you put it right on any loans that you have, student loans that you have. Or you could sell your credit. If they don't allow that, you could maybe sell your credit to someone that wants more food, like someone on the football team or the track team that needs more fuel. Who knows? So there are options there. Now, books, this is a big expense, right? So books, again, I always want to change the slide and I always forget it. Actually, the average cost of a book now is about 300. I've seen it as high as $350 buying it through the university. So there are options out there that you can buy used. You don't have to necessarily buy new books unless the major calls for it. So this is with the caveat of always talking to your professors first. Always, always, always do that. Second, I would wait the first week of school before you buy any books. Because, in speaking to my nephew and some of his friends, the first year, yeah, you want to buy everything so that you're ready to rock and roll on day one. But the reality of it is that some professors have a book list that they don't even tap into, and you're buying all these books for no reason. So maybe give it a week before you buy your books. I had my nephew had, I think, 3 or 4 books that he had to buy for one course. They ended up only using one book, which made me kind of upset for him, because now he's got to sell it back, and it's a big old mess. So anyway, that's just some ideas. You could also maybe download some books on an iPad. That might be cheaper. So look into those other options. Sometimes the professor keeps books off to the side. And if your student can approach the professor and let them know that they have a very tight book expense, could the professor help them out in any way, shape, or form? Sometimes the professor just gives them the book to use for the semester. So of course that takes a little bit of courage for the student to go up to the professor to do that, especially your freshman year, but maybe as parents we can coach along that conversation. And then I'm going to jump over personal for a minute, but let's go to transportation. You really can't move the needle on costs like that other than buying a bus pass if you need one, or bringing your bike to school. But you really can't move the needle on that. Now, personal expenses. I want to highlight this again, my soapbox moment. In speaking with upcoming graduates, one of their biggest regrets is excessive, for lack of better words, excessive disbursement. So what I mean by that is there's the cost of attendance, right? Minus any of your money, any loans that you put up. So let's say you need a loan for the cost of attendance. You send the check to the school, they take everything that they need, and there might be a credit, right? So they put the credit on a student account, okay? They give that student a debit card to that account, and the student goes to the local cafe and buys a cup of coffee for $5, $7, whatever it costs now. They've just financed that cup of coffee for 10, 15, 20, 25 years, depending on the source of where those funds were coming from. Okay. So this really also happens with students that live off campus that need to tap into their student loan to pay the rent, which you can do, right? Sometimes, a block of money is deposited into the account and the student uses it for other things, other than the rent. So that's also something that you have to be aware of. So again, I'm coming off my soapbox. We'll continue on and talk about the free money. So there are 2 different types of scholarships. The ones that can be obtained through filling out the FAFSA form, and then the ones that I talk about that are private, right? Without filling out the FAFSA form, right? So again, start your scholarship search at the end of your junior year, that summer. A lot of parents ask me, how long should they dedicate their time? I would say treat it like a part-time job. I mean, I don't want to go overboard, but if they could do at least an hour and a half of searching a week during the summer months, I think that's wonderful, right? Just know that with private scholarships, be aware of how the financial aid officer treats those scholarships. My oldest daughter did this. She got really good, like she got $5,000. She had to, of course, let the school know. And what they did is they reduced her financial aid package by $5,000. Now, that being said, we are in an environment where enrollment is really competitive. Schools want to increase enrollment, especially off the heels of COVID. They want to rebound their numbers. So it's really competitive, and they might not take those private scholarships off their financial aid package. So I would just call the financial aid officer to see what happens with those private scholarships. Now, private scholarships can be based on need or merit for a variety of different reasons. They can be issued in a lump sum payment or over 4 years, depending on the scholarship. These are the best resources, or I shouldn't say the best. They're pretty good, though. I have to say they're pretty good. I've given you the website addresses to these 4 areas. FastWeb, it's a free scholarship search platform. It gives you a lot of information on financial aid, gives you a lot of resources. College Board, you're probably very familiar with, or at least your students are familiar with this. This is introduced at the high school level, so it really connects your student with ACTs, SATs, how to choose a school, all of that. FinAid is, again, information on financial aid. And then this Raise Me website is pretty cool. It partners with universities to offer these like micro scholarships for your students' achievements. Not all schools offer it, but a lot of schools do. So you might want to just check that out. And of course, always ask your high school guidance counselor for resources. Also, a good resource, right, is Google search. So how do we search for something that is effective? I would always coach your student to put their major in, plus the word association, and then the word scholarship. And then it will show you a list of scholarships, right? So it's going to start with the biggest one first, and then it'll go all the way down to the smallest one being probably $100, right? But don't discount those smaller ones. This is just a tip, because the big ones, right, the eye-catching ones, those are usually a national scholarship. And, the competition's really hard for those. But the small ones, a lot of people don't even bother with that, right? So your chances of getting those smaller scholarships and adding it up over time, I mean, don't discount them because those really could make a difference. Also, if you do your county that you live in, plus the word foundation, plus the word scholarship, that's another way to search for these scholarships. Now, tips. Get in the money making mindset. Again, this is a part-time job for your students. If there is a scholarship out there. Well, there used to be a scholarship out there that was 30 pages long. The application was 30 pages long, but it was for $10,000. So, I would tell my kids, listen, if my boss asked me to write a 30-page report, hey, that's what I do to get paid. So, that's just a different way of looking at it. I would build a scholarship list so that, once your student has maybe 1 or 2 good essays that they can use over and over again, it's nice to just pop it in a scholarship list. So where do you get those scholarship lists? You could get it from an awards night, right? Or graduation. There's a lot of times they print out these pamphlets with sponsors and scholarship awards and all of that. That's a good place to build a scholarship list. Make sure that when you are filling out an application, follow all of the instructions, right? So if it's asking you to fill it out in red crayon, that's what you do. You fill it out in red crayon, as crazy as that sounds, because believe me, I am on a scholarship committee, private foundation separate from student choice. And we vet these, like we have a stack. And if I don't see that they follow instructions, we just throw them out and we move to the next one just to save time. So following instructions is critical. And if they need to write essays, please take the time and energy and effort to have someone look at them for spelling errors, grammatical errors. This is, again, it's free money, and this is what's going to bring the cost down. Make sure you list your students' part-time job in there if they have one. That makes a difference too. As a scholarship committee member, that's one of the first things I look at. to see, because, someone that has a part-time job might not be able to be part of the math club or track or whatever have you. So that makes, that's important for me. So please highlight that to your students. And then, use of reference letters. You can ask anyone for a reference letter. Usually it's a guidance counselor. Obviously, they do theirs. A favorite teacher, but the thing with favorite teachers, they're wonderful, but they have a whole stack usually because they're very popular teachers. So make sure your student has their student resume, which contains all of their achievements from day one of freshman year through today, right? So if they ask their pastor or if they ask their boss at the part-time job to write them a reference letter, they can present that resume. So to make it a lot easier for whoever's writing a reference to just highlight their character and then pepper in all of their accomplishments in that reference letter. Okay, and then highlight any charity work. Now, please be aware those scholarships involving luck, such as those drawings, they're getting your money. They're not getting your money. They're getting your information to get your money probably later on. So any sweepstakes or lottery type scholarships, be aware of. Anything that's very easy to complete without any essays, be aware of that. And then the worthwhile scholarships are the ones that have that, that requires the effort, that has multiple sections, that has that element of competitiveness. So make sure you are aware of that. Now, just going to briefly touch on scholarship mistakes. I think the biggest mistake that's not on here is students that don't believe in themselves enough to go for it and to just apply, even if they think that it's not going to, that they're going to get it, right? Because my boss was also on a scholarship committee a few years back, and they were giving out $40,000 scholarship. And this young man won. And this young man asked the committee members what won him that scholarship. Was it the GPA? Was it his involvement in the community? And what they said back to him was that he was the only one that applied, which blew my mind away when I heard that story. And I tell it every time I do these webinars because I think it's so impactful. And that as parents, we have to coach our kids through some of this especially when I think back to my youngest daughter didn't have a lot of confidence when she was doing this, and I had to sort of push her into applying for some of these. So anyway, so there's also those scholarships that can be received through filling out your FAFSA form. So again, it's free money from the government. The Department of Education doesn't have to be repaid. The only thing that I would warn you about is grants, right? So grants are free money, but it always comes with a stipulation. So one thing that comes to mind is the teaching grant for $4,000. So if your child goes to school, their major is teaching, and then in year 2, they decide that they want to be an accountant, that grant can be turned into a student loan. So just be aware of that. I just have up on the screen some federal grants. You can get this information from that bookmarked URL, studentaid.gov, to get, again, more information on that. Now, also, there is a federal work study program. So this is just basic as answering a yes or no question on the FAFSA form. Do you want to participate? It is first come, first serve. It's a part-time job, usually on campus, for expenses. So the only thing that I would caution you about that is, again, I think to my youngest daughter, she had federal work study program for, I think, $1,500 at the time. And at the end of the September, the month of September, she calls me and she said, I can't do federal work study and concentrate on getting the best grades I can, because she was eventually going to go to med school, and it was really important for her to be pretty much perfect. That was just her. And I said, okay. I said, fine, you can pull out a work study, but how are you going to get that money for your expenses? So we had to make a family decision on that, and she ended up extending her hours during the summer months at her part-time job. So What is cheap money? That's the federal loan, the federal direct loans for students only. The parents don't have anything to do with it. It's in the student's name. They have to be a citizen, having a high school diploma, GED, or pass a homeschooling test. They have to be enrolled in a degree or certificate program, and they have to be making SAP, a satisfactory academic progress. This is defined by each school, okay? It could be different for each school. So the reason why this is important that if grades start falling, that federal aid can be revoked. So just know what the SAP is and how to navigate that if your child is struggling. The direct loans, there's two type of direct loans for your students. There's the subsidized and the unsubsidized. The subsidized is awarded to students based on their financial needs. So the government pays the interest while the student is in school. And the interest rate right now is at 6.53%. That's fixed, with a loan fee of 1.057%. So the parent would probably have to pay for that. That comes right off the top of the loan. So you have to, pull it out of your pocket. Now so that's subsidized. Then you have the unsubsidized. The unsubsidized is awarded to all eligible students, and it's not needs-based. The student is responsible to pay the interest and, of course, the principal back. But this can be deferred. Both loans can be deferred, right? While the student is in school. And then after 6 months after graduation, then payments are expected. So the interest rate's the same on this as the subsidized loan. The term is 10 years, again, with that 6 months grace period. These are the loan limits for both the subsidized and unsubsidized, so total of up to $5,500 for incoming freshmen. And you see the sophomores, the juniors have more of a limit, as well as the independents. I have for you up here the definition of an independent that comes up every now and then. 18-year-olds thinking that they're independent when they're actually not. So there's very few far between that are actually independent at 18. So these are the qualifications. Now, how do you fund the gap, right? So do you want to take it again from your 529? Don't want to take it from your retirement account, right? You need to talk to someone, a financial planner. But when you do talk, there's going to be an option for parents now called the Federal Direct Plus Loan, the parent loan for undergraduate students, that is out there that should be on the award letter, okay? And parents, this is only in the parent's name. The students are not on this loan, okay? And the appeal of this loan is the limit, right? So the borrowing limit is less the cost of it's the cost of attendance, excuse me, minus any financial aid awarded. So, but I think that parents have to take a beat when they look at this, because look at the interest rate. It is fixed, but it's at 9.08%. That has been the highest it's been since I've been in the business. So I have not seen it in my 9 years with student choice that high. There is an origination fee of over 4% on that. Again, the term is 10 years. It is credit based. So if you do, as a parent, get denied on this, then your student automatically qualifies for additional federal loans, additional federal aid, I should say. And if you have a freeze on your credit report, make sure you lift it before you apply for any student loans. Now, there is something out there called tuition payment plans, which takes that tuition bill and puts it on a payment plan. Usually it's about 10 months, and it's offered by the bursar's office at the university. There is a fee. It depends on the school. So you're probably thinking, how can I put like $10, $20, $30,000 on a payment plan? I wouldn't be able to afford that for 10 months. Absolutely, right? I get you. But you could put $1,000 of that unmet need on a payment plan. That's, $100 a month. And that's $1,000 less you have to roll into a student loan. You multiply that by 4, 4 years, and that's $4,000 not rolled into a student loan. So maybe something like that would be appealing to you. Now, before we get into what your credit union offers, I wanted to talk a little bit about private student loans. Now, these are not under the umbrella of the Department of Education. These rates and terms are set by credit unions, banks, fintech companies, and they are not meant to replace federal direct loans, only substantiate that gap. Like if you've exhausted everything, you're free and you're cheap, then you go to your private student loans. These rates can vary by institution. It's usually either variable rate or fixed or both, depending on what your institution offers. And it's usually based on a prime rate, okay? Origination fees vary from 0% to 3%. I usually see 0% on most of these. So if you see that there's an origination fee, I would just move on to the next lender. Repayment terms can be anywhere from 10 to 25 years. And this requires underwriting. Unlike the federal government loans, these have requirements such as co-borrowers, right? FICO scores, debt to income ratios. They take a look at your credit. And then they offer deferment as well while your student is in school. So that's what a private student loan is in a nutshell. What does your credit union offer? They offer a really cool, unique product in that it is a line of credit. So you and your student only have to apply once during their educational career, which makes it very convenient. You know that you have money backing you up those 4 years. You could borrow up to $75,000. And this is only eligible for students that are going to a 4-year school, what we call Title IV eligible, which just basically means that the school participates in financial aid. That's all that means. And rates are as low as 8% with your credit union. Now, your credit union also does not have any origination or prepayment penalty fees. You can pay this off whenever you want. They do go with terms of 20 or 25 years. It depends on how much your student graduates with. So if they graduate with a $40,000 loan or under, the term is 20 years. If it's over 40,000, the term is 25 years. They do offer full deferment, interest-only payments, and principal and interest payments while the student is in school. What I like about this loan is that there is a possible co-borrower release option on this. So if I am comparing a plus loan to a private loan, I know a plus loan's 10 years, but I could possibly get released after after 48 months of consecutive on-time payments. Then I might want to do a private student loan. So that option is out there. And then there is an option out there called graduated repayment that is available. This is only available one time, and it's to accommodate those students that are trying to protect their credit right out of school. Like if they have a hardship right away, they can't find a job, what we'll do is we'll extend that 20 or that 25-year term out to 40 years for only 2 years. And then after 2 years' time, the amortization term is reverted back to either 18 years or 23 years. So it's just making it a little bit easier for them to ease into their new life. Again, I wouldn't recommend it for everyone, only those that are trying to protect their credit that have run into some hard times. So I've spoken a lot today about a lot of different things. I realize this, and I am thankful that it's being recorded. However, if you have more questions, there is a free opportunity for you through your credit union. So if you go to this website, you can tap into our college counselor. She is not a salesperson. She will not sell you on loans, but she's there to help you compare and contrast financial aid, talk about the types of colleges that you should be looking at. She will talk to you about scholarships, how to find them. She'll talk to you about award letters. So you can either ask her a question via email or schedule an appointment out there for a little bit more one-on-one help with your questions. So make sure if you have, again, if you're questioning anything, please reach out. So again, if you have, like I said, this has been such an honor to be with you tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to go to that ussfcu.studentchoice.org site. That's where you're going to also find the application for student loan processing. So with that, I am going to stop and hand it over to my U.S. Senate Federal Credit Union employees for help.
Suzanne, you're so amazing at what you do. Every time that you do a presentation, you keep us engaged. You give us, your personal experiences, and you also, answer questions that we may have in our mind while we are looking at the content. So thank you very much for doing this presentation. I personally learned so much, and I'm sure that the attendees this evening learned so much as well. And I do see a couple of questions. So Andrea, I'm gonna pass the mic to you.
Thank you so much, Eddie. So the first question is, my SAP appeal was recently denied. However, my classes, dental hygiene, start in September. I would appreciate any advice under these circumstances.
Can you repeat the first part of that question? I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the audio.
Yeah, of course. My SAP appeal was recently denied. However, my classes start in September. I would really appreciate any advice under these circumstances.
Yeah, I would definitely talk to our college access counselor. That website that I had up earlier, this one here. She'll be able to have those one-on-one conversations with you and sort of help navigate you through what you should do. My first thought, right off the top of my head, would be to call your financial aid officer of the school that you're dealing with and have a candid conversation about, hey, what do I do next here? I really want to keep on attending your school or attend your school. How can we make it happen? Those financial aid counselors are real, they're angels. Like, you know how our high school guidance counselors sort of protect us from everything bad, right? Those financial aid officers, yes, they're dealing with money, but they want to make sure that you keep coming back, right? They're business people. They want you to come back. So I would start with them and also schedule an appointment with Trisha. She's wonderful, our college counselor. She'll walk you through or give you some advice.
Thank you so much. So the next question is, what is the difference between a direct subsidized loan and a direct unsubsidized federal loan?
Yeah, so the difference is the subsidized loan, the interest is paid by the government while you're in school. The unsubsidized loan means that you're responsible for the interest. So what happens is, let's say you defer it for 4 years. That interest on the unsubsidized loan is still calculating in what we call a bucket, right? And then once you graduate, they take all that money out of that bucket and then they put it on top of your principal balance of that loan. So you're paying interest on interest and principal. So I always say, if you can, not all of us can, my kids couldn't. But if you could at least make interest only payments while you're in school, that avoids that capitalized interest scenario, and it just makes it a lot easier. You'll be a little bit ahead of the curve coming out of school to pay your debt back.
I wish I knew that. I wish I did that.
A lot of us would.
You said that, and I was like, oh, dang it, I missed out. Okay, so how do I apply for these federal loans?
So when you receive your award letter, you should have a subsidized loan, federal direct subsidized loan, unsubsidized, whatever you qualify for. There should be a link on your award letter or some kind of resource on your award letter that you would go to complete the application process. So if you don't see that on your award letter, again, reach out to your financial aid officer of the college that you're attending. She will, trust me, she will get you there and get you settled. Good questions. These are good questions.
They are. Okay, I think this is the last question. So certain private colleges have higher tuition as high as 70K per year. Any loan options offered by USFCU for undergrad/graduate graduate students enrolled in such colleges?
Yeah, again, this is really, God, this is such a good question. So private versus public. I don't know if this is going to help you or not. This is just another story that I have. But my daughters, when they started looking at colleges, I said to them, I said, well, I can't afford private school. So go ahead and fill out, your public school applications. And I said, well, throw in one private school in there. We'll see what happens. Well, they came back and I couldn't believe I was blown away because private schools have deeper pockets than public schools. So their offers were a lot better than the public school sector. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And we went with the private school option, thinking that I would never be able to afford that for them. Okay. The only thing that you have to be worried about with private schools is what is the increase of tuition year over year, right? So that college navigator tool that we talked about in the beginning of the webinar, I would look at that, the tuition and fee rate of that private school to see, what's going on with that. But of course, your credit union can help you with financing that through a private student loan. Their private student loans can do exactly what you're looking for, pay for that that private school. But I'm really glad that you brought that up because a lot of times people don't even bother with the private school sector because of that reason. And if you do end up with still a high dollar amount to pay, then again, my suggestion would be to talk to your financial aid officer to see if you can move the needle now that they have their enrollment locked in for the year. Maybe they have some extra money they can throw your way. So actually a parent took my advice. It was actually, oh my gosh, in another credit union in Virginia. He went to the financial aid officer in person. I think that's always good when you walk in person to make your case. And he walked away with $5,000 more money in his pocket. They reduced his tuition by $5,000. So, I mean, those are just tips. I don't know if it'll happen, but hopefully it'll happen for you.
And it doesn't hurt to try to ask, like all you can do is ask, and the worst that they can do is say yes or no. So, with what Suzanne was saying, we want to emphasize in this webinar that just like we do in other webinars, we always, emphasize that all you gotta do is ask the questions. The solution is there for you. The counselors are there for you to help you. This college access counseling tool is always there to help you as well, and it's free, so take advantage of it. So whether you have any concerns or any questions or any specific questions, the help is there. It's just a matter of you, letting the experts know. And that's the reason why we have this type of seminars and webinars as well, is because we want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable asking their questions. And, Suzanne has so much experience. You can tell she's very passionate about this. I mean, this is so enjoyable when you do this, So, once again, we want to let everybody know that, we're here to help you. But just ask the questions. Let us know what you're struggling with, what your concerns are, and then we're here to help you. So, any last words that you want to say, Suzanne?
No, it's been so fun. I love this. I love doing this. So I thank you very much for your invitation tonight. I hope this was helpful for the audience. I wish you good luck in your endeavors and feel free to reach out. You have plenty of resources. So again, thank you.
With that being said, Suzanne, you did a phenomenal job. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. And then, Carrie, what are we going to go over next week? What is that webinar next week?
Next week is fraud and scams, identity theft, and our retail VP Troy will be presenting, so that'll be awesome.
All right, so we have a new presenter. We told you at the beginning of season 2 of the webinars we were going to have all these surprises. So we're throwing 2 to our board. We have all these new presenters, new panelists. It's just so exciting times. And we're going to talk about fraud, something that we never get tired of getting education about, because fraudsters, they always come up with new strategies, new ways to try to harm you. But that's the reason why we have these webinars, is because we want to make sure that that here at the United States Senate Federal Credit Union, your security is our top priority. So, and just FYI, I know Carrie that she mentioned that she watched The Beekeeper, I think, a couple of weeks ago. I think I watched that movie as well. So it has to do with fraud. So if you want to watch that movie before the webinar, I recommend you to do that, you know. With that being said, Suzanne, thank you very much for your help. We really, really appreciate you. Thank you for being here with us. Carrie, thank you very much for the content and the graphics and everything, you know. And then Andrea, thank you for reading the questions. And Kim, you are so fantastic at what you do. You did amazing with the intros. You are always sharing your knowledge as well. With that being said, everybody, once again, thank you very much to all the attendees as well, because without you, this wouldn't be possible. My name is Eddie Villanueva. This is the United States Senate Federal Credit Union. And I hope we see you next week in the same channel at the same time. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.